What's up, Tribe? How you guys doing? Welcome back for another retro review. The Wire Season 1, Episode 11. We are almost at the end of the season. Um, so this is the aftermath of Kima getting shot, okay? Everybody is buzzing around. They have DEA, they got the local police, they got the state police. Because remember, the state police was the one that brought the case to the squad, and so anyway, it was a lot going on, honey. It was a lot going on, and so Rawls is there, not Rawls, I'm sorry. Yeah, Rawls is there, and he shows up and he's asking the lieutenant, the fat guy, like, what do you need? Like, what's going on? What do you need from me? He was like, listen, I need some space. He was like, I keep clearing this area out, but it's all kinds of people walking around. They're compromising my scene. Like, I really need it to just be enough, I need to get a lot of these people out of here. And so Rawls, he flexes a little bit. And he was like, listen, if you haven't been given a specific task, I need y'all up out of this area. Like, bye. And so, of course, everybody is hesitant because, of course, everybody wants to help. He was like, so who doesn't understand a direct order? Because I know what I just said. I know I just heard myself say, y'all got to go. So they end up rolling. They stay right on this perimeter. He pulls Bunk back in. And they end up figuring out that part of the problem was that the street sign was flipped around, which is what, Kima, the guy told Kima, like, listen, they do that to throw the police off. And it did in this case. And they figure out that, Kima was trying to get them directions as best she could, but everybody got turned around, and it just was what it was. And they were able to trace enough they were able to backtrack and trace enough. They found the trail leading, like, they went through some train tracks and stuff, and they found the trail leading to where the car picked them up. They found they found some footprints. They were finding some clues. Now the guy, I didn't write his name down. Oh shoot. The guy, why did I write his name down? The one that was setting up the buy with Kima and Orlando. That's who they're looking for. That's the only name that they have. They know it was more people involved. They know that it was more people there, but that's the only name that they have. And so that's who they're looking for. So they end up getting a warrant to, ransack his house. And of course, his mama was like, Malcolm ain't here. They were like, Malcolm, we ain't looking for Malcolm. We looking for, Renee. We're going to call him Renee. I don't remember his name. And they were like, no, we looking for Renee. She was like, no, that's my baby. Like, she was like, damn, like, I knew my other son was into it, but dang, him too. Then back at the scene, Freeman is like, all right, y'all, we need to get up on these wires. And of course, Carter and Herc are like, man, fuck the wires. Kima, he was like, hold up. Our best bet right now, our best clues is to try to get on those wires and see what they talking about. You think that a police lieutenant or a police sergeant, whatever her rank is, getting shot isn't going to make, they're not going to be on the chatter talking about that. We need to get all the information that we can get. And so, when he put it to them like that, they were like, all right, let's go. So then he was like, did anybody tell Kima's people? And Carter was like, nah, I'll go tell her, And so we see Carter go to tell the girlfriend coming out the house. I thought they were married, but they're not. They're girlfriend and boyfriend. Girlfriend and girlfriend at this point. And Herc tries to tell her. Carter tries to tell her, and of course she's like, Kima's at work. I don't know what you're talking about. Kima's at work. That whole denial thing. If you're married to a cop or you're with a cop, you know that at any point in time you can get that phone call that you don't want to get. And so she knew what it was. You know what I'm saying? But she wasn't trying to know what it was. And so so she finds out. We see Weebay text Stringer. Stringer calls him back. He was like, it's done. And that's all he says. Of course, he hangs up on the pager or whatever. And that's and anyway, so he hangs up on the page or whatever. Now at this point, Weebay don't know that they killed a cop. Like, he figured they just killed another girl or whatever. Back down to the hospital, Daniels is trying to talk to the the police detective that's on the case, and he's telling him everything he can remember and all the stuff about what Kima was saying about their direction and where the cars were, giving him all the information. And the commissioner walks up and he immediately starts talking to the white detective, and the detective is like, no, I'm not. That's her lieutenant right there. And of course he turns and looks at Daniels like, oh damn, okay, yeah, it's the black one. I was like, Lord have mercy. So he was like, we're here for you, whatever you need from us. We're sorry, all that stuff. So they end up getting a tape from, to hear the last moments before the gunshots off of the wire. And I mean, off of, Kima, what Kima was saying to them. And, you hear them giving her giving them the direction, saying, look, this ain't right. Something don't feel right. And then all of a sudden you hear the shots fired. You even hear her trying to find her weapon, because what Buck had found was she had hidden a weapon in the car. But through, it was an older car, Orlando had this old, like, 1968 Lincoln Town car, whatever. And Buck was saying that probably because of these old leather seats that the gun probably shifted and Kima couldn't find it. So she wasn't there without a weapon. She just had put it somewhere that she thought she could easily get to it. And you almost hear her, you could kind of hear her looking for it. Now, in the meantime, McNulty is blaming himself. Because, of course, in McNulty's mind, if I hadn't pressed this whole Barksdale issue, we'd have never been there. Kima would have never been there. Kima wouldn't have got shot. And so Lieutenant Rawls ends up taking McNulty with him down to the police station. And he tells McNulty, he was like, look, this ain't on you. He said, there's a lot of shit that's on you. You are an asshole. You have done a lot of bullshit to create some situations to get your own way. I'll be the last one to say that you haven't. He said, but because I can't stand your ass, I would be the first person to tell you when something is your fault. And on this one, this ain't your fault. So get your head out your ass and get in the game, So McNulty, we see McNulty end up leaving the hospital, going down to the boiler room, washing up, because he had Kima's blood all over him, child. He's washing Kima's blood, and he gets back on, he gets back on it, The police are out looking. I mean, we know that. And like I told you, they already ran up in his mama's house, and they're going any places where they think they're going to find, this little boy that they're looking for. I think his name was Raynard. See, I was going to remember it. Raynard. I hope that's right. Then we have Stringer Bell meeting up with, Weebay. And Stringer Bell tells Weebay, what happened. And he was like, yo, man, this is what happened. This is what happened. It went down. We didn't even see the girl until we was there. He didn't, Raynard didn't tell us that there was a girl even there. We ain't know. And he was like, well, she was a cop. Weebay was like, do what? He was like, nah, she wasn't no cop. She looked like one of Orlando's chicks. Like, she wasn't no cop. Stringer Bell was like, she was a cop. Y'all killed a cop. So which I need to handle it. So he was like, well, I know I'm straight. We know Raynard's straight. It's Lil Man we worried about. Lil Man is the other shooter. And Stringer was like, yeah, I don't know about, Lil Man. I don't know about him. Like, he flaky. I don't know if he can handle it. And so Stringer was like, you know what we got to do? Like, we going to have to handle that. He was like, and where you got people? Because you're going to have to get out of town for a while. Like, the block is hot, bruh. You're going to have to get up out of here for a little while. And so he said, well, I got people here, I got people there. He was like, well, you need to go somewhere where they don't know you got people. So if you got people in New York, you can't go to New York. You got people, you can't go there. So he's going to get out of town for a couple of days. And, well, probably for more than a couple of days, couple of weeks or whatever. But he's going to get out of town so they can try to get it together. And Stringer know that they in trouble. Like, and y'all know that too. The police will let a whole lot of stuff slide. But what they not going to let slide is you killing a cop. Like, duh. So, back over to the boiler room. Pastrami Sandwich and Freeman are figuring some things out. And they're trying to figure out, basically, they know that they were able to find that, a text went to Stringer Bell. I mean, a text, Lord. A page went to Stringer Bell, but of course, they can't prove, they don't know who it came from or anything like that. And so you know, Freeman was like, listen, we're going to have to backtrack. Like, if we can't get it from the front way, we're going to have to go through the back door. And Pastrami Sandwich is able to actually, y'all know he good at this grunt work stuff. He's able to actually put together enough, like, scroll together enough information where they can figure out that the text that came from, the text that went into, they know it came from code 007. They don't know who 007's code is. Remember, I explained to y'all in my last review back in the day when you had pages, you gave a person a code so you would know it was them when they were texting you, because you know people would not text you, people would page you from all kinds of numbers. But if I always put my code, then you know it was me. Call me back. But they didn't know who 007 was. Well, come to find out, Pastrami Sandwich was able to figure out that 007 pages Stringer Bell at certain intervals, at certain times, and that it always ends up coming back to, and they were able to line it up to the night that Weebay got shot and Stickum got killed. And so they were able to connect it to, oh, so that's Weebay. So Weebay texted Stringer Bell 20 minutes after the shooting. And so they're piecing it all together. Like, oh, he was texting him to let him know what happened with the shooting. Like, they pieced it together. And they also pieced together that they believe that Lil Man was the person with Stringer Bell at the shooting. So now they're getting closer. They're getting closer. Back down to the hospital, Kima's girlfriend is there. And, of course, nobody is talking to her, right? The commissioner, lieutenant, everybody is ignoring her. And Carter is with her. So Carter gets up and Carter goes over. And he was like, listen, this Kima's girlfriend over there, and nobody's talking to her. Like, nobody's telling her what's going on there, ignoring her. And so, it's Major, Brunel. And Brunel was like, Kima's what? And so they were trying to be very discreet, which they shouldn't have had to be. They should have been like, her girlfriend. But they were trying to be discreet, and they were like, well, her roommate. And of course, Brunel looked over and saw her and knew exactly that it was not her roommate, you know. And so he goes over to the commissioner to try to get the commissioner to go and talk to her. The commissioner won't do it. He was like, her family coming up from Richmond. They'll be here in an hour or so. And so he wasn't even trying to talk to her. So Brunel was like, damn it, I guess I'll do it myself. So it's just these little subtle things that we saw. We saw the little subtle thing between Daniels and the commissioner, where the commissioner automatically assumed that the white guy was the head of the task force. We see this little subtle thing with the commissioner not wanting to deal with Kima's girlfriend because I guess it's going to rub off on him or something. I don't know. So we see these little subtle idiosyncrasies, you know, kind of things. Now, in the meantime and in between time, they were able, Freeman and Pastrami Sandwich were able to figure out which payphone that Weebay and them had used. So they were able to get to the payphone and dust it for some prints and all of that good stuff. And they're hoping to get some prints. Hell, they even dusted the prints off of a soda can that was on the ground because he said, listen, the can was still fizzing. It was fresh. It hadn't been there for 2-3 weeks. So we're gonna dust this for fingerprints too. And they found Lil Man's fingerprints, I believe, on the can. They found Lil Man's fingerprints on the can. But they did not find anybody else's fingerprints. So, because the other fingerprints were smudged and stuff. They were able to get some fingerprints, I believe some fingerprints from the car, which of course took them back to Reynald, I believe that's that little boy name. But anyway, they knew it was him. So, okay. It's a lot, y'all, because we're getting towards the season end. A lot's going on. It's a lot of moving parts, okay? Now, while all of this is going on, down to the low rises, we find out that Wallace calls Poop almost, he called him twice a day, right? And Poop was like, even if he don't have nothing to discuss, he calls me twice a day to talk about absolutely nothing. He's homesick, and, you know, that's trouble, because, you know, there's a reason why they got his ass out of town. So it's trouble, but he's homesick. He's calling back. And D'Angelo's like, where Wallace at? And they was like, oh, he went down to go visit his grandmother down on the Eastern Shore. You know, oh, shouts out to El Teddy. He asked me about the Eastern Shore. It's just that. It's just the eastern part of Maryland, down by where the beaches and stuff are. It's just the Eastern Shore of Maryland. It's not a town called the Eastern Shore. It's an area of the state, and they call it the Eastern Shore. That's it. That's all. But he shouts out to him. Y'all go check out his reviews. He asked me in his last review, and I talk to him every day, and I kept forgetting to tell him. But anyway, so okay, y'all. Blah 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 da 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 da. I want to make sure I'm getting everything for y'all. I have my notes here, but I'm all out of order anyway. Okay, so yeah, okay. So back down to the hospital, Kima's pager goes off, and of course, who's paging Kima? Bubs. And so they are able to, of course, they figuring out where the pager is, and the next time Bubs pages Kima, they end up getting rolling the police, roll up on Bubs, and they end up taking him downtown. Bubs is like, what's going on? What's wrong? Why are you taking me downtown? I didn't do nothing wrong. I didn't do nothing wrong. And he gets down there, and the guy that's working the case, he's like, who are you? And why are you paging? I don't even think he said, why are you paging her? He was just like, who are you? He might have asked her what you paging her for, maybe. Maybe he did ask her that. And Bubs is like, what you mean? Like, I don't know what you're talking about. What's the problem? And he was like, you got 3 seconds to answer my questions. And of course, Bubs is like, listen, I didn't do nothing wrong. I ain't into nothing. He was like, this the cleanest I ever been. Like, what are you hassling me about? Because, of course, he doesn't know about Kima. He's just trying to get in touch with her. Because, remember, Kima had promised, to look out for him. You know what I mean? So, he don't know what's going on. So, dude starts beating him up. Right? And Bunk and all of them, they hear it, and they go in there, and they pull him off of him, and he was like, yo, I need to talk to, he called for Kima, and he was like, she not available. He's like, well, let me speak to McNulty or somebody. Like, this ain't right. Like, what you beating me up for? Like, I don't know nothing. And so they end up getting McNulty. Bump was like, you need to get down here. Your boy, one of Kima's, informants, and he described him. He was like, yeah, he's like, you need to get down here because it's some problems before it become more of a problem and it escalate. Get down here, check on your boy. So he goes down there, and he's the one that has to tell Bubs what's going on. And Bubs is like, well, where were you? Like where were y'all? How did y'all let that happen? And of course, McNulty already is feeling guilty about it. I mean, he's not guilty, but he already feeling guilty. And he was like, you need to come down here. You need to come get him, So he tells her, he's like, well, what can I do to help? And he said, well, what you can do is you can go down to the projects and see what you need to see, like get some information. And Buzz is like, well, I really ain't been hanging out in the projects too much lately, so I don't know how much information I can get you. Like, I don't know how much I can help you out. And McNulty, not knowing that Bubs is trying to get clean, of course he gives him $20 so he can go get a hit. And Bubs tries to tell him, but of course he's not really articulating himself the best. Y'all know how Bubs is. But he ends up going down to the projects, and what he notices is he was like, listen, little man ain't show, because he reporting back to McNulty. He said, little man ain't showing up for work. He said D'Angelo, because, I'll get back to D'Angelo. He said D'Angelo wasn't really around, wasn't really a whole lot going on. And what they also noticed is that they found where the newest stash house is. They see that they're dropping the stash out of a high rise, and they dropping it down to the runners, because of course I guess they scared about Omar coming back, honey. They try to come up with something that'd be a little bit harder for Omar to get to them, I guess. And Poot sees, now Poot didn't say anything, but Poot saw Bubs coming by, and he's kind of looking at him like, I know this dude, I'm not really sure, like he don't know where to necessarily place him, but I don't know, that might come into play later on, because this is The Wire. Everything is important, even when you think it's not important. It come back later, it comes back into play. Now, while this is going on, Stringer sends word for D'Angelo. He's like, I need to tell D I need to see him. He sends word to see D'Angelo. And D'Angelo, and Bodie is down there, and Bodie was like, yo, something's going on, like, because they see the helicopters, and they say something's going on. They were like, all of this over a cop, and so they're talking about it. He was like, yeah, but you know how your uncle get. Bodie was like, how your uncle get when people fuck up. He got a clean house. They don't like that too much. They don't play them games too much. And so he was like, yeah, he's like, yeah, I don't know. So that's when they sent for Stringer Bell sent for D'Angelo, and of course D'Angelo, he's like, well, what the hell? Like, what do you want? And Stringer Bell had a conversation with Avon, and Avon was pissed because they found out that the money, the $30,000 they got, they can't do nothing with it. They thought they'd be able to, use that money to pay off the people that did the hit and keep it moving. Like, they wouldn't take no money out of their pockets. And Avon brought up a good point to Stringer Bell. He was like you should have known it was a fucking setup. Where would Orlando get $30,000 from? Like, what made you, like, you had to think, where would Orlando get $30,000 to make a quick hit? Like, he don't have that kind of money. We don't pay him like that. Like, he don't have that kind of money. And, Stringer was like, you right, I fucked up. Like, you right. So he was like, we getting, we getting Weebay out of town. We're going to take care of Lil Man. So that's when they sent for D'Angelo. So D'Angelo thinking he in trouble. He like, oh shit, I'm in trouble. What's going to happen to me? Like, what's going on? And I think a part of me feel like he was fucking with him. But Bodie ended up taking him on a ride. They won't tell him where he going. They won't tell him what's going on. He finally gets there. And it's Bodie's little hideaway. And, all drug dealers had that little spot where that's off the grid, that don't nobody really know that they have. And if they can make it look like an everyday regular spot, it's an everyday regular spot. And that's what it is. Because as soon as you go in, though, it's all renovated. It's nice. And he's got all these fish tanks. And D'Angelo is standing there with his eyes closed, crying, about to cry. Because he's thinking he about to get dealt with. And, Bodie was like, what is wrong with you? Like, I need you, I got to go. I'm going out of town for a little while. And I need you to take care of my babies while I'm gone. And he's teaching him how to feed his damn fish. And D'Angelo is sitting there looking real stupid. And he was like, well, where you going? He was like, Philly. He's like, listen, I just shot a cop. We got to get the hell out of town. Because their biggest fear is for Kima to wake up and be able to identify them. Like, that's what the thing is. They were like, we ain't really worried about, Lil Man. But what we are worried about is him being able to identify, her waking up and being able to identify Bodie or Lil Man or whatever. So back down to the boiler room, child. We almost done, honey. Back down to the boiler room. The commissioner has decided that what he wants to do is he wants to kick down as many doors as he can. He wants to try to make as many busts, kick down as many doors, and try to make it look like they're really responding to Kima getting shot. And, Daniels was like, we know it's a stupid idea, and that's fine. We'll get them a couple of the stash houses, but we won't get them the main stash house, the one that they have found on last week's episode that was way out in the county. They were like, we're not going to give him the main stash house. And so, they start putting the affidavits in order and stuff like that. So while they're there typing up the damn affidavits, one of the representatives from the commissioner comes down there and basically cusses him out, goes off on him. And that's when they realize that they got a snitch. They realize that they got a mole. And Daniels was like, I was his mole for a while. So I guess, it stands to reason that it's somebody else down here that's passing information. Because they knew about the main stash house. And they knew that he was holding out. So that had to come from somebody within his team that would know that they were holding out on the main stash house, right? So, but they continue to, type up the affidavits because he ain't trying to give up the main stash house because he already knows that, like, that's their bread and butter. Like, he said, if we get even too close to the main stash house, Avon's going to switch up and we right back where we started. We right back at square one. Burrell is feeling guilty because he pushed for them to do the sale that Kima got shot. McNulty feeling guilty because, of course, he been pushing this whole thing from the beginning. So McNulty goes to see the judge to try to get Burrell off of their ass or whatever. And the judge is kind of like, yeah, I can't help you this time. And McNulty was like, what you mean you can't help us this time? Like, you always help us. Like, what are you talking about? You always help us. And he was like, nah, And so he's at a political fundraiser. He sees that the judge has been added back to the ticket. He was like, oh, so you back on the ticket now. And the judge was like, oh, yeah, it was just a little, they were just giving me a hard time, making me play ball a little bit. He was like, it don't have nothing to do with y'all's case. It's, he was like, it don't have nothing, it don't have nothing to do with y'all's case or whatever. And he was like, oh, so or who's your daddy now? Like, oh, so you're not going to help me now because basically they probably threaten you politically. And so now all of a sudden you don't have nothing to say. He was like, so who's your daddy now? That kind of thing. So, okay. So, McNulty and the DA, they end up going to the lawyer, the guy that Avon has on retainer, because he's the lawyer of record for this Raynard little boy that they're chasing around. And, McNulty ends up threatening them. McNulty is like, listen, we know you know how to get in touch with him. We know we know who you are. We know what you do. And we turn a blind eye to it. But let me tell you what's not going to happen. If you don't produce him and you don't find a way to get in touch with him, then what we're going to do is we're going to raid his mama house every day until they nothing left to raid. And we're going to go to the state's attorney's office and the FBI and the IRS and get them to look at your cash deposits and see if it matches up with what you say you make. Like, we're not playing with you. A cop has been killed. We're not playing these games. And so the attorney looks at the DA, Rhonda, and he's like, so, I mean, that's coming from him. He upset. I get it. But is that coming from you? And so, of course, she's between the catch-20. She's between a rock and a hard place. Like, she kind of got to support McNulty, but no, she really don't agree with McNulty. So when it's over, but she says, yeah, that's coming from me. So when they leave out of there, and her and McNulty get into it, McNulty, he gives the best speech. He said, you know what? He said, if every damn lawyer wasn't trying to be a judge, then we wouldn't have to worry about y'all not wanting to do y'all job. Because she was saying how this guy used to be the president of the bar and how she don't need no smoke and how politically connected he is. And, if she don't want to get stuck being a DA for the rest of her career, then she need to learn how to play ball. And he was telling her, he said, if y'all weren't so concerned about moving to that next level and moving into the position of a judge or something else, more people will hold him accountable. He was like, it's no reason in the world why he should still be practicing. Like, we all know who he is and what he does, and we all know who he represents and how dirty he is. But everybody protects him because he's politically connected. I mean, McNulty was a lot more articulate than I am. But basically, he was making a valid point. He was like, y'all don't want to do y'all job because y'all don't want to be held accountable. Anyway, so, but he does present the little boy. But the messed up thing is, he was like, yeah, he was there, but all he was doing was trying to sell some, baking soda. So, like, he wasn't selling cocaine. Like, yeah, he was trying to get over and sell some baking soda. But, he ends up, but he was like, but he didn't take the money, and that's on the wiretape that he left the money in the car. He didn't take the money, and you could hear him leave, like he's not identified on the tape as being the shooter. Like, he just, he went to go get the fake cocaine, and they got shot while he was gone. And so they basically, by the time he ended up spinning that story, honey, the most they can charge him with is selling fake, drugs, which they said was like a 3-year maximum. And the lawyer was like, well, we're gonna make sure you do all 3 years. And he was like, that's cool, I can do them 3 years, because of course he already knew what the deal was going in the door. And I mean, 3 years was probably a whole lot less than what he expected had they been able to connect him for murder. You know what I'm saying? So he was like, I can do them 3 years, I ain't tripping. Which I know good and damn well he ain't gonna do 3 years for selling no damn baking soda that he never actually even sold anyway. So we get to the bust, honey. I think we got everything covered. We get to the drug bust, and they do what they say they're gonna do, honey. They knock down the doors, and they are able to get to not the main stash house, but the high rise. The stash at the high rise that they were throwing out the window, and they're able to find it, honey. They found money in the refrigerator. They found money under the sink, under the mattresses. They found drugs everywhere. They found everything they was looking for. And that daggone hurting Carter. Now, they just got hemmed up the other day for stealing money that they didn't steal. But they stole some this time. And I guess they figured this time it ain't no wire to get us caught up. Well, don't nobody know how much money was up in this house. And they done took the money. Each one of them took a stack of money. And they looked at each other. And it was that unwritten, okay, you gonna get, okay, I'm gonna get, all right, cool. And they hid it, they got their little stack and they stuffed it in their little vest or whatever, honey. I said, daggone it, these mugs right here. So, Last but not least, honey, after all of this is going on, the only person left back at the house is who? Pastrami Sandwich, while they out making their little bus. And he, Wallace is calling Poot. Poot is going to send Wallace money to come home. And, he was like, man, I can't do this. I can't stay down here in the country, blah, 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 blah. And, but Pastrami Sandwich writes it down as not important. Now, didn't Freeman tell you that everything is important? Because that's an important call. They need to know that Wallace is on his way back to town, because Wallace is supposed to be in like protective custody because he's a witness. And if they get a hold of his name, y'all already know what's gonna happen to Wallace. But anyway, honey, anyway. So that was pretty much this episode, y'all. Let me know what y'all think. Drop it in those comments. Peace.